Hello, this is Justin from Auto Trading Academy. So in this video we're going to look at how to check if your broker is not a dealing desk or if it's a pure SDP ECN type. So you may think this is an impossible task, but you can actually check this out on paper, and specifically you can check this in the Financial Conduct Authority Services Register by looking at brokers that are regulated in the UK. So you can do this specifically for UK regulated brokers. I'm not sure about how you find this out for other countries, but for UK you can definitely do that. I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can basically check this out. So the first thing you want to do is basically go to the FCA website and to the Financial Services Register, and there'll be a button here where you can search the register. So just click on that, and you can here basically type in the regulation license number of your broker, which should be located somewhere at the bottom of the website of that broker, as they have to display. And basically just search in the broker you want to look at. So I'm going to look at FX Open very quickly, and I can see here FX Open Ltd. I'm sure they have some other companies in other countries with other regulation again. So if you're opening accounts, make sure you open where the regulation is highest, and especially the UK, because the investment deposit protection is pretty high and good, and the regulation is one of the best. So if I click on that, basically we can go ahead and have a look at all the info. You can see it's got all the info, the address, everything, and so on. But specifically what we want to look at is really this permission section over here. So we want to click on that. Let's just zoom in a bit more, and you can see here it's got lots of stuff, and essentially this here you basically got to have, arranging, safeguarding, administration of assets if you want to even hold customer deposits. So to be a broker, you got to have this for sure. And then we've got two other very important ones. Basically, if you are a pure SDP broker, you are going to have this, which is dealings in investment as an agent. So this is what you want to basically look out for. So either you'll just have this, or there can be another combination, which I'll explain in a minute. But essentially, if it's pure SDP ECN, you're going to just see this basically. If it's a dealing desk, you'll see basically dealings in investments as principal. You basically see this. So if I go back to the slide, just have dealings in investment as agent, which is basically equals STP, like I showed you, and not have dealings in investments as principal, which is basically dealing desk, which I've shown you here as well. So in this case, you can see it's got both, but it has a limited license, so it's not as easy and as simple as everyone thinks to check this all out. But essentially, this FX Open here, you can see for UK has a permission for both, but it's got a limited license here of matched principal broker, which basically means that it's got to take the opposite side for each each trade. So basically they can never take on risk on clients basically trades. So that's exactly the case on this option, which is pretty good to show you, because it's a mix. So they have both permissions but have restriction of matched principal, which basically have to always make trades on opposite sides, and essentially they can't really risk they can't take risk on clients' trades, which is basically the same as STP. So that's quite a neat way where you can check things out. I'm not sure of any other ways for other regulations, but for UK, it's definitely a really good one and easy to check out. So when you actually go out there to choose your broker, I certainly do recommend for choosing the UK, because it has one of the best regulations out there in the world. The licensing is pretty, again, expensive. I think it's a couple of £1 million, so you have to actually be quite a solid company to even get the FCA regulation under your belt, and they do check a lot of things. They check even the company management, so that it's not complete idiots running the company, and they're not gonna go ahead and run off with your money. So there's a lot of things they check. There's a big process you have to go through and apply and so on, and there's lots of checks and balances, daily even, where you have to report stuff if things don't match. But essentially with FCA regulation, one of the biggest sort of pluses for UK is that you've got, if you actually go to the website very quickly, if you go to the FCA regulation, one of the biggest pluses is that you're covered up to basically 50,000 fat pounds, and essentially, you're covered up to £50,000 around the world of investment, and this is from anywhere around the world. It's not just for UK clients, residents. So for deposits and banks, it's even higher. So for investments it's 50, it's 75 per depositor, and so on. So one of the best and really high limit, so very solid thing. So if the broker does go bust, and they certainly do, then you're protected still for £50,000, which I think is really neat. So I wouldn't understand why anyone would choose any other broker in some random island or country, or some island with some strange regulation that you're not even sure what they do. So in my opinion, I would always go for strong regulation in a country such as UK that has good solid deposit protection, even if the broker does go down, because no one is really protected from a broker going down. Any broker can go down, and a good example is Alpari, who which during the Swiss franc event went bankrupt and went bust basically in January 15th. So one of the biggest brokers, FXCM as well, almost went bankrupt, and also Saxo Bank as well, having lost about 100 million, I think, dollars, which I think was very big dent for them as well. So there's lots of big brokers that can go bust, and no one knows when or who or what. So best is to be under the protection of the safeguarding of deposits and as investments, and at least you'll get your money back in 3 or 4 months, or half a year, or so on, because client basically deposits in all of these brokers and so on, they go above, they have priority over all the creditors, and during the liquidation of the company, they're the first thing that sort of gets paid out in terms of basically obligations of people who invested in the company, essentially. So you'll get paid out before all the creditors, and so on. So there are lots of sort of pluses there, and it's just generally it's good to go for a regulated company, because they do have a lot of checks and balances that they check, and if the company doesn't comply or is found to have done something wrong, they do get nice and big hefty fines, which they're not very happy to pay. So this sort of does keeps the system in check in a way. So I always recommend, and a lot of people ask, should I choose, what about brokers in Cyprus, or what about brokers here and there, or New Zealand? Why would you go for regulation in New Zealand? When you have it's just, there are so many other countries where the regulation is much stronger, like the UK, or why would you go for Cyprus if the whole country pretty much went bankrupt? It was like 3 or 4 years ago, if I remember correctly. So a lot of people just didn't get the money back. So it doesn't matter what regulation they have and what deposit insurance if the whole country pretty much almost went bust. So it's really you gotta sort of think about it in a different perspective. There's lots of brokers out there, really a lot of them, and you just gotta look at the things that are most important. And if you really break it down, I think it's strong regulation, solid business model, and that's it. And even though if you do consider all these factors, yes, big brokers do go down, and you can see that from examples from not long ago. And yes, STP brokers, you might think, how can an STP ECN broker go bankrupt? Well, they can, because I'll cover this in another video, but effectively they can because they have other risks, even though they don't take on risk of clients' trades, because they're basically passing you straight through to the market. There are other risks, counterparty risks, in the event of basically liquidity events, which is exactly what happened with the Swiss franc, which they're basically like small crises. And as you know, an STP ECN pure broker is basically a middleman, and as we all know, what happens to middlemen? They get buggered from both sides when something happens. So in any business model, if you're a middleman and if there's a crisis, you get squeezed from both sides, and that's just sort of the golden rule. And the same as with STP ECN brokers, that there are counterparty risks there that you have to deal with in the event of in such events as the liquidity event that happened with the Swiss franc. So I'll go with that in a bit more detail in a video, but essentially, yes, dealing desks do have one type of risk, is that they take on the market risk, but they have advantages elsewhere, whereas STP ECN brokers, they have advantages that they don't take on market risk, but they have another type of risk, which clearly showed up very well during the Swiss franc event. So that's pretty much it on this video, guys, and I'll see you in another one.